There is a parasite that does not attack you directly. It has someone else do it for you. The botfly uses a mosquito as a living delivery system, hijacking one of the most common insects on Earth to place its eggs exactly where it needs them. The host never sees the botfly. The host never feels the eggs arrive. By the time anyone knows something is wrong, the process is already weeks underway. The human botfly, Dermatobia hominis, is found across Central and South America. It does not look like a threat. Wide body, short wings, resembling a large housefly with a slight iridescent sheen. The intimidating part is not how it looks. It is how it reproduces. The botfly captures a mosquito mid-flight, transfers eggs to the mosquito's underside, and releases it. The mosquito then delivers the eggs to the next warm-blooded host it feeds on. The egg transfer takes seconds. The botfly captures the mosquito, holds it, deposits between 15 and 30 eggs against the mosquito's underside, and releases the carrier. The mosquito does not die. It does not visibly change. It resumes normal behavior and eventually lands on a host animal to feed, carrying the botfly's eggs without knowing it. The mosquito does not intentionally deliver the eggs. The delivery happens by proximity. When the mosquito lands on warm-blooded skin to feed, the body heat of the host triggers the eggs. The eggs hatch within seconds of contacting warmth. The larvae do not need the mosquito to do anything further. The mosquito is a vehicle. An unwilling, uninvolved vehicle. The newly egg-bearing mosquito is slightly heavier than a standard mosquito. Research suggests it may fly differently, lower, slower, with a slightly altered flight path. Whether the host animal detects this difference is unclear. What is clear is that the mosquito continues toward warm-blooded skin and the eggs it carries are now on a countdown timer measured in seconds from landing. Body temperature is the trigger. Not light. Not chemical signals. Heat. The eggs hatch in response to the warmth of the host's skin surface, a heat-sensing mechanism that ensures the larvae only activate when they are already in contact with a living host. Cold activation would waste the larvae in open air. The system is thermal gated from the start. The larva does not bite its way in. It does not pierce the skin aggressively. The entry is gradual. The larva uses tiny hook structures at one end of its body to anchor and work its way through the skin over a period of minutes to hours. The host feels this as a mild surface irritation, indistinguishable from a standard insect bite. The host's immune response begins, but it is already too late to prevent establishment. Once beneath the skin surface, the larva positions itself in a specific orientation. Hooks facing downward into tissue. Posterior end facing the skin surface. A small breathing hole forms at the surface, maintained by the larva's position, connecting the underground larval pocket to the outside air. The host's tissue forms a protective pocket around the larva. The larva did not create this pocket. The host's own immune system created it, attempting to wall off the intruder. The larva benefits from the host's defensive response. The breathing hole is the most identifiable sign of botfly larval presence. A small circular opening in the skin surface, slightly raised, occasionally producing a clear fluid. The host animal, whether deer, rabbit, mouse, or any other warm-blooded species, cannot close this hole. The larva actively maintains the opening from below. Attempts by the host to scratch or groom the area do not dislodge an established larva. The larva grows inside the tissue pocket for approximately 8 weeks in most host species. During this time it goes through 3 developmental stages, each larger than the last. The tissue pocket expands to accommodate each stage. The breathing hole widens. The host carries the growing larva throughout normal daily activities, feeding, sleeping, fleeing predators, without being able to remove it. The pocket of tissue the host's immune system formed around the larva is, ironically, beneficial to the larva. It provides a protected space. The immune cells that would normally attack and destroy a foreign organism are present around the pocket but cannot effectively penetrate the larval surface. The botfly larva produces compounds that suppress the local immune response, a chemical negotiation between the parasite and the host's defenses that the parasite has been winning for millions of years. The host animal experiences increasing irritation as the larva grows. Behavioral changes are documented in infected animals: more frequent grooming, more scratching, changes in resting posture, reduced feeding time. The irritation does not allow removal of the established larva. It consumes the host's time and energy without producing any benefit to the host. The botfly does not target only deer. The complete host list includes deer, rabbits, squirrels, mice, dogs, cats, horses, cattle, and, when the opportunity presents, humans. Any warm-blooded animal in the botfly's range is a potential host. The botfly does not have a preferred species. The mosquito delivery system means the botfly's eggs reach whatever host the mosquito feeds on. Wildlife researchers in Central America have documented infection rates in local rodent populations reaching 40% in some seasons. In 10 animals in a given area carrying at least one larva. The ecological weight of this is significant. The energy each infected animal diverts to managing the infestation is energy not available for reproduction, territorial defense, or predator avoidance. The mosquito that carries the botfly eggs is not affected by the eggs. The eggs sit on the mosquito's external surface and do not penetrate the mosquito. The mosquito is a carrier, not a host. This distinction matters. The botfly evolved to use the mosquito's behavior, seeking warm-blooded skin, without compromising the mosquito's ability to perform that behavior. A dead or sick mosquito does not deliver eggs. The carrier must remain functional. Multiple larvae on a single host are common. A single mosquito can carry eggs from a single botfly deposit event. Multiple mosquitoes can sequentially deposit eggs on the same host. A heavily infected animal can carry 8 to 15 larvae simultaneously in different locations across the body. Each larva occupies its own pocket. They do not interact. They develop independently. The geographic range of the botfly is expanding. Climate change is extending the range of the mosquito species that serve as carriers. As the mosquito range expands northward and to higher elevations, the botfly expands with it. This is not a tropical concern becoming a concern elsewhere in the future. Botfly cases in North American domestic animals have increased measurably over the past 2 decades. The botfly's relationship with the mosquito is called phoresy, one organism using another for transport without parasitizing the transporter. The mosquito is not harmed. The mosquito does not benefit. The relationship is entirely one-directional. The botfly uses the mosquito as infrastructure. The mosquito is unaware of its role in the system. The sealed state of a successfully established larva is the outcome the botfly's entire reproductive strategy leads toward. Every step, the mosquito capture, the egg transfer, the heat-triggered hatching, the tissue penetration, the immune suppression, exists to achieve this moment. The larva sealed in the host's tissue pocket is the safest position in the botfly's life cycle. Safer than the egg. Safer than the free-flying adult. The host's body is the most protected environment the larva will ever inhabit. The host animal's grooming behavior, one of the primary natural defenses against external parasites, is largely ineffective against an established botfly larva. The larva is below the skin surface. Grooming addresses surface parasites. The botfly specifically occupies the space that grooming cannot reach. This is not coincidence. The subsurface position is the evolutionary solution to the problem of surface defense. Host animals in botfly endemic areas show behavioral adaptations at the population level. Deer in heavily infested regions spend more time in open windy areas. Wind reduces mosquito activity. Rodents show increased use of underground burrow time during peak botfly season. These behaviors reduce exposure to the mosquito vector rather than addressing the larva directly. The animals cannot address the larva directly. The mongoose that learned to follow dung beetles to food sources, referenced in last week's video, is an example of behavioral intelligence applied to ecological opportunity. The botfly's use of the mosquito is the same principle operating at the biological level rather than the behavioral one. Find a pre-existing delivery system and use it. Evolution and intelligence arrive at the same solution through different pathways. The larva in the tissue pocket feeds on the host's tissue fluid and surrounding cellular material, not blood directly. The feeding is gradual and slow, consistent with the weeks-long development period. A single larva does not consume enough to cause serious harm to a healthy large host. Multiple larvae in a compromised or small host, a mouse carrying 8 larvae, for example, represent a meaningful proportion of the host's resources being diverted. The breathing hole is the larva's vulnerability. It is also the host's only window to the larva. Without the breathing hole, the larva cannot survive. It requires gas exchange to develop. The host's immune system cannot close the hole while the larva is alive and maintaining it. When the larva is ready to exit, after approximately 8 weeks, the hole is the exit route. Week 1 the larva is approximately 2 millimeters. Week 4 it is 1 centimeter. Week 8 it can reach 2 centimeters. The tissue pocket around it has expanded proportionally. The skin surface above shows a visible raised swelling approximately the size of a large pea at full larval development. On small animals like mice and squirrels, a fully developed larva represents a significant portion of body mass in a localized area. The botfly's emergence timing is precise. The larva exits the host after completing development, not prematurely, not late. The exit involves the larva reversing its orientation in the pocket, hooks facing upward toward the skin surface, and working through the existing breathing hole. The process takes minutes. After exit, the larva drops to the ground and burrows into the soil, where it pupates into an adult botfly. The host is left with an empty pocket that heals over weeks. After successful larval development, the host is not permanently damaged in most cases. Healthy adult animals with single or low-count infections recover fully after larval exit. The tissue pocket heals. The breathing hole closes. No lasting structural damage in typical cases. The host goes on. The larva goes on. They go on in completely separate directions. This outcome, parasite and host both surviving, is actually the optimal evolutionary outcome for the botfly. A dead host ends the relationship too soon. The fox that pursues the rabbit through this story does not know the rabbit carries botfly larvae. The hawk that pursues the mouse does not know. The predators of the infected animals are not affected by the botfly larvae. The larvae are species-specific to warm-blooded mammalian hosts and do not complete development in birds or other predators. The predator-prey relationship continues independently of the parasite relationship. The botfly operates in a different layer of the ecosystem. The botfly adult has a very short lifespan, approximately 9 days for females. In those 9 days the female botfly must capture enough mosquito carriers to transfer all of her eggs. She does not eat as an adult, her mouthparts are vestigial and non-functional. She has only the energy stored during larval development to sustain her adult life. Every hour of the 9 days is allocated to reproduction. There is no margin. The male botfly mates once and dies shortly after. The female botfly captures mosquitoes and transfers eggs until her energy is exhausted. The adult botfly life is brief, energetically limited, and entirely focused on placing the next generation into the delivery system. Everything about the adult botfly body, the vestigial mouthparts, the wide hairy abdomen, the strong short legs, is optimized for the 9 days it has. The deer rolling in grass to relieve skin irritation is performing a behavior documented across multiple host species in botfly endemic regions. Cattle roll. Horses roll. Deer roll. The rolling motion presses the skin surface against the ground and vegetation. It does not dislodge established larvae, but it reduces the surface irritation temporarily. The host gets a few minutes of reduced discomfort. The larva is unaffected. Researchers attempting to understand the botfly's impact on wildlife populations found that infection rates peak in rainy season when mosquito populations are highest. The correlation is direct. More mosquitoes means more egg-carrying capacity means higher infection rates in host populations. The botfly's success is entirely dependent on the mosquito's success. The two species' population dynamics are linked in a way that is invisible from the outside. The botfly does not discriminate by host health. A healthy deer and an unhealthy deer are equally attractive as hosts. The mosquito delivers to whichever animal it feeds on. However, the impact of infection differs significantly. A healthy adult deer with 2 larvae experiences mild inconvenience. A young, underweight, or otherwise compromised animal with multiple larvae faces a more significant metabolic burden during a vulnerable period. The immune suppression compounds the botfly larva produces are being studied by pharmaceutical researchers. Any compound that can suppress a local immune response without systemic effects has potential medical applications. The botfly is not just an ecological subject, it is an active area of biomedical interest because it has solved a problem, local immune evasion, that human medicine is also trying to solve. The heron in this story is irrelevant to the botfly cycle. The heron eats fish and frogs. The heron is not a botfly host. But the heron's presence at the water source, where the deer, rabbit, and mouse all gather, creates a multi-species interaction point where the mosquito vector moves between potential hosts efficiently. The water source is where the botfly cycle is most efficiently distributed. Every animal that drinks from the same water source is a potential host through the same mosquito population. The botfly's 9-day adult window means the species lives most of its existence as a larva. The adult phase is brief and specialized for a single function. The larval phase inside the host is where the botfly actually grows, develops, accumulates the energy it will use as an adult, and completes all developmental complexity. In terms of time, the botfly is 90% larva and 10% adult. The concept of a parasite that causes no lasting damage to its host is counterintuitive. Parasites are understood as harmful. The botfly occupies a zone of managed impact, enough resources taken from the host to complete larval development, not so many that the host dies before larval development is complete. The host dying early ends the larval development. The botfly's fitness is directly linked to the host's continued survival. They are in an involuntary partnership. The small dark brown mouse with 2 botfly larvae represents approximately 10% of its body mass in hosted tissue disruption during peak larval size. This is not trivial for an animal that weighs approximately 20 grams. A mouse carrying 2 larvae at peak development is carrying the equivalent, proportionally, of a human carrying a 3-kilogram parasite. The mouse's behavior changes. Its predator avoidance slows. Its foraging range shrinks. The infection is not lethal, but it is not neutral. The botfly evolved this system from a common ancestor that likely laid eggs directly on host animals. The addition of the mosquito carrier step is the evolutionary refinement that made the botfly significantly more successful. The mosquito reaches hosts that the botfly cannot access directly. The botfly does not need to be where the host is. The mosquito is already there. Using an existing distribution network is more efficient than building a new one. The pale blue heron at the stream represents a gap in the botfly's host range. The botfly cannot use birds as hosts. The larvae cannot complete development in avian tissue. The same stream that distributes the mosquito vector to mammalian hosts also supports non-hosts, the heron, various bird species, that the botfly's delivery system reaches but cannot use. The system is not perfect. It has a range limit defined by the larval development requirements. After 8 weeks the larva is ready to exit. The exit is a straightforward mechanical process. The larva works its way through the existing breathing hole to the skin surface and drops to the ground. What happens at the ground level is where the next generation begins. The larva burrows into soil and pupates. The soil depth and moisture level determine pupal survival. The botfly is dependent on appropriate soil conditions for the final developmental stage. The 3 host animals in this story, the pale tan deer, the small pale gray rabbit, the small dark brown mouse, represent the range of host sizes the botfly successfully uses. The deer is a large host where the infection is low impact. The rabbit is a medium host where the impact is moderate. The mouse is a small host where the impact is significant. Same parasite. Same life cycle. Dramatically different relative impacts depending on host size. The botfly's range currently spans from southern Mexico through Central America and into northern South America. The northernmost confirmed cases in wild North American animals have been documented in Texas and Florida. The mosquito carrier species that botflies use are already distributed significantly further north than the botfly itself. The bottleneck is the adult botfly's range, not the carrier's range. As climate patterns shift, the adult botfly's comfortable temperature range shifts with them. The host animal's scratching response, ineffective against the subsurface larva, is not entirely without benefit. Scratching removes surface parasites, reduces bacterial load on the skin surface, and maintains skin condition. The host is not wrong to scratch. The scratch just does not address the specific problem the botfly larva presents. The behavior is correct for most parasites the host encounters. The botfly is the exception. The development timeline of the botfly larva inside the host is temperature dependent. In warmer hosts, small mammals with higher metabolic rates, development accelerates. In cooler hosts, large mammals with lower surface temperatures, development is slower. A mouse may carry a larva for 6 weeks. A deer may carry the same developmental stage for 10 weeks. The host's physiology is a variable in the parasite schedule. The larva repositioning in its pocket shortly before emergence is the final stage of development. The repositioning orients the larva correctly for the exit process. The host experiences increased localized movement sensation during this period, a feeling researchers describe as distinct from the dull background irritation of earlier development stages. The movement is real. The larva is actively repositioning. After the larva exits and drops to the ground, it has approximately 1 hour to burrow into appropriate soil before desiccation risk becomes significant. The soil entry is the transition from parasitic phase to independent phase. From this point the botfly completes development inside a pupal case underground, emerges as an adult, mates, captures mosquitoes, and the cycle resets. The entire cycle, from egg on mosquito to adult ready to repeat, takes approximately 11 weeks. The simultaneous infection of 3 different host species in the same meadow is an accurate representation of how the botfly operates in its native range. It is not a single host specialist. It is a generalist that operates across the available warm-blooded mammal community simultaneously. The mosquito population serves all of them. The botfly's reproductive output is distributed across all of them. The cycle is resilient because it does not depend on any single host species. The adult botfly resting for the first time in this story, surrounded by new mosquito carriers, is the system at the point of maximum reproductive output. The energy accumulated over 8 weeks of larval development is being converted into egg production and carrier capture behavior in the 9-day window the adult has. The botfly is not resting in the human sense. It is completing the final allocation of resources before the 9-day window closes. Every animal going about its normal life in the meadow, feeding, fleeing, grooming, surviving, is a potential node in a reproductive network the botfly has been running for millions of years. The network does not require the animals to cooperate. It does not require the mosquito to know its role. It does not require the host to be aware of what it is carrying. The system runs on biology alone. The host, the carrier, and the parasite are each doing exactly what their biology instructs them to do, and the result is one of the most successful parasitic life cycles on the planet.